In this video, I will try and make you understand what is meant by common resources. Now, you can refer to the taxonomy of goods that I prepared in one of the lecture, in which we went ahead and we made something like this. So we mentioned that here is my good which is exclusive and rivalrous and non-exclusive and non-rivalrous. Now, a good which is exclusive and rivalrous was called a private good, right? This was called a public good. Now, goods which were non-exclusive, you could not exclude anyone, but one person's consumption was reducing the other person's ability to use it, which means it was rivalrous. That was actually known as a common good. This is something that I want to focus on for today's lecture. What are common goods in detail? And I want to talk about something which is called a tragedy of commons. Similarly, goods that were exclusive but non-rivalrous, we call them natural monopoly. Now let's try and understand for this lecture what are tragedy of commons. So before that, let's write down the definition of common resources. Common resources are available free of cost to anyone who wants to use them. Okay, but so because they're available free of cost, like fishing, like water, so they are non-excludable. But one person's use of common resources reduces other person's ability to use it. So if one person is using it, the other person will have less of it. If one person is doing overfishing, if your cattle is doing overgrazing, then the other person's cattle will have less of it. The other person will have less of fishing. So all these are examples of being rivalrous. Now, because the other person will have less of it, that's a tragedy for the other person, right? That's sad for other person. So because of that, that is known as tragedy of commons. So for example, let's talk about this beautiful land that I have. And on this land, what we have is a lot of grasses there. Okay. Now what really happens is, this is this person one. He brings all his cattle with him for grazing to this land. Now, there's this person two also. He also, wants to bring all his cattle for grazing. What happens is, this person's cattle is overgrazing, is taking most of the grass. because of which this person is able to use less of it. His cattle is not getting enough of it. But this is something over which there is no price. This is absolutely free of cost. So, there is, had there been a price and he would have paid some price for it, it would have made sense that if you're using more of it, you're paying a price for it. But that is not something that is happening here. So because of that, this person, is getting less of it. And, or even if this person also uses it, let's say that this person is also doing an overgrazing, then the quality of land is definitely getting affected because there is too much overgrazing on the land. Again, an issue of tragedy of commons. So let's write this down. What is tragedy of commons? A parable that illustrates why common resources are used more than is desired from the standpoint of society as a whole. As a whole, the society becomes very unhappy. Why? Because this beautiful land, which had this grass all over, is now being overgrazed. You're using it more than what is required because it is absolutely free of cost. And because of overgrazing, the quality of the land is affected. The land is losing its quality. The land is losing its ability to replenish itself. And eventually, the land is grazed so heavily that it becomes barren. There is no grass that is left on land. So, that prosperous place is no more prosperous. People are losing their livelihood because they don't have a good land to work with. So now, ideally, if you look at it, we can say that, in essence, the tragedy of commons is actually because of externality. Now, what was externality? Externality was when one person was affecting the other person, but that was not taken into account in the market scenario, right? Wasn't that externality? Now, why is this an externality? This is a negative externality because when you take your sheep, your flock to graze on land, you don't think that, you're affecting the land or you are affecting other people. When you do overfishing from a lake, so these are my fishes. When you do overfishing from a lake, you don't realize that you are affecting the other person because there are less fishes available for other people. So in a way, you are causing a negative externality on the other people, but at the same time, that is not being recognized in the market. So this is, the tragedy of commons. Now, what are few of the examples of tragedy of commons? So the first is clean air and water.